In. All right, I got to do that again. Shit.
Ready to go.
Hello and welcome to episode 20 of the Metacast podcast. Formerly the podcast about itself, ourselves, and the self in general. But we're gonna get right into that. I think we're trying to revamp some things. Like I've recently wanted to do this. I almost wanted to have. Well, I guess first of all, my name's Ty. I'm your host, and I'm joined by my awesome co-host Distance. But I've been wanting to do this recently. Like I wanted to propose the idea of having an episode that was like jokingly calling it like state of the podcast and doing like a state of the union, but have it just be like us having a conversation about like, okay, now that we're like 20 episodes in, it's been 20 weeks. What do we need to change? What do we like that we're doing? Things like that. Like I thought that would be a cool idea. And like organically it did just kind of like come up in conversation. So that's not the overall topic for this episode, but that is what we are going to start with. Which I mean really fulfills the original like thing we were doing where we started a podcast to figure out what we wanted to make our podcast about. So I mean, it kind of like having an episode to really like refocus and look at that, I think is a good thing. So before we started this episode, you were saying that you wanted to take another look at the intro itself, correct?
Yeah. Based on the conversation we were texting about lots of things yesterday and this morning involving the podcast, and we kind of were throwing around the idea of a mission statement. So I was thinking that, because I still like the intro that we have of the podcast by itself, ourselves and the self in general is pretty cool. But as the sort of the constant co-host, I've been doing this like goofy wave thing which is kind of like that thing. Did you see the It remake where he's like waving with the other human's hand?
Was that in the first chapter or chapter 2?
Yeah, it was in the first chapter.
I've seen that one. I don't remember that part though.
Oh, it's like he has like someone's arm he ripped off and he's like doing some goofy wave thing with it.
I do. Yeah, no, I do remember that. Yeah, no,
it kind of reminds me of that. / there's like a weird wave that Forrest Gump does on the shrimping boat. So it's a silly trademark thing. So I thought it would be cool to like add something on there. Like after you make the intro, then we go a little further as to be like the podcast that helps itself be better, ourselves be better, and the self in general be better. Because we kind of came to the conclusion that, I thought it was cool when we did the podcast about Joker, and I think it would be fun to talk about more like movie and entertainment stuff, culture stuff in the future. But I think that a lot of the subjects that we've done, like the overarching theme really seems to be like being a better human for the most part. That's kind of what I think we've gravitated toward. I mean, we've talked about some other stuff that was sort of interesting, but none of those podcasts that we did, I think, that talked about interesting stuff like, I don't know, galactic colonization was really, I don't think it really flowed for us.
Okay.
I think that a lot of the ones where we've talked about difficulties that we've had and things that we have or are still trying to figure out, I think those have been like really helpful, and the conversations seem natural. Like it seems like stuff that we're naturally good at talking about.
Gotcha. Yeah. I can see that. Okay. Yeah, because I never really, I mean, I guess like we'd talked about, the goal. I guess I don't want to use the word goal, but we talked about like, using the podcast to like better ourselves and things. And like, I remember even like using the analogy of like, well, I'm someone that's lost, so I don't feel like I'm like some voice of authority that I can, I'm no Anthony Robbins. Like I can't tell you how to make your life better, but it's like I used the analogy before of like, being like two ships lost in the storm, where it's like, even though I'm, struggling myself, maybe like me and a viewer together having the same problems, two minds are, better than one. Maybe we can come up with like solutions and ways to better ourselves together. But I never really thought much beyond the podcast just being entertainment, So I do like the idea of there being like a goal, something that we are trying to focus on and keep consistent with, rather than it just being like, all right, well, whatever we want to talk about this week. So Yeah.
We don't have to necessarily like call it a goal if you don't like the word. I mean, purpose is always good. Mission is good too.
Mhm.
Funny thing about Tony Robbins though is that Tony Robbins isn't even Tony Robbins.
Yeah. What do you
I
mean
mean,
by that? What do you
I was listening to it was a round table talk with Don Cheadle, um,
Don Cheadle? Is that War Machine?
Henry Winkler, yeah, Henry
Okay.
Winkler, Jim Carrey, Sacha Baron Cohen. Um, oh my God, um, Ted Danson, and the dude from Veep. I don't remember his name.
I don't either.
But it was mainly just sort of comedic actors talking about stuff. And Jim
Okay.
Carrey was talking about how he, um, I guess all of them kind of were comparing notes about how someone comes up to you all crazy and starstruck or whatever, and they want you to be like a thing. And they have this perception, this idea of you, and then you try to be that for that person
Yeah, yeah.
instead of being genuine. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Tony Robbins isn't genuine. I just think that people have an idea of who he is and that that's not necessarily him at all.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that makes
So that's
sense.
kind of what I meant. Like, because like what Steve Jobs at one point said that you should understand that the world you live in was created by people no smarter than you.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, my cat's trying to kill
Gotcha.
something.
That actually, it reminds me too of a it was actually like a Cindy Crawford quote. You know, she used to be like one of those big supermodels in like the 90s, and it was like
Yes.
her quote was like, "Not even I wake up looking like Cindy Crawford," or something like that. I thought like it was like, yeah, I mean, you've got an expectation of this character that you know like an actor or some personality as, and that doesn't mean that they're always on. They're not always that you expect them to be. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're just and I think that it's in the. I think it was in either the Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck or the book Unfuck Yourself.
Mm.
One of those F word books.
One of
He
those
talks
fuck
about
books.
how I think it was Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. He talks about where it's actually more endearing and better for your audience if you're not some super awesome dude at stuff.
Oh, I'm sure.
That,
Yeah.
you know, you try to like it was. I think it was about like a journalist maybe, or like a columnist, and it was like it might have been a YouTuber, but he would try to be like this image of like the perfect whatever. I can't remember what it was that he was doing. Like he didn't have any issues or any problems.
Mm-hmm.
And then after he started to kind of be genuine about it and like honest about the fact that he wasn't great and he wasn't perfect and he didn't have everything figured out, it actually became more endearing to his audience. So
Yeah.
I honestly think that, well, it's a red flag if someone seems like they've got everything figured out.
Yeah. Yeah, most things that seem too good to be true usually are, right?
Either they're full of shit or you have the wrong impression of who they are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or both.
Yeah, no, I'll agree with that. And I think it's, like we touched on, I mean, we didn't use the word, but it's like, it's so much more relatable. I think that as a personality, you just come across as more human, as someone that people want to spend more time listening to and getting to know. I think it's like, it's all around better than trying to keep up some appearance of, that isn't real, right?
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay, so I do like the so your idea was the podcast that tries to, how did you word it? Was it tries to improve itself or tries to make itself better?
I think there's a cleaner way to do that.
Okay.
The podcast that makes it's I don't know. I don't want to be like too absolute about it, but it's cleaner to just say makes as opposed to tries or attempts. The podcast that makes itself better, ourselves better, and the self in general better.
Okay.
It just sounds cleaner, and it's no one's. I'm reading too far into semantics by wanting to say try because it makes it sound like we're 100% certain that we're going to make everything awesome. It's not true. We don't think that, and no one's going to think that from that.
I like that though. Okay, so I will add that into the notes and start using that. Sweet. Okay. So do we want to focus, I guess, more in the future when picking episode topics of, things that are like that? I mean, like I feel like we've deviated from that recently. But I mean, like you said, like doing the Joker thing, we can still, the way that our minds work, I think we still bring it back around to looking at things in this light, right?
Yeah, I mean, even when we talked about Joker, it all kind of went there of like introspection and self-understanding and stuff, like picking out the parts of Joker that seemed relatable in that film, and also the way that the audience feels when watching the film. There's a lot of stuff that they ambushed you with in that. So yeah, we can totally like continue to talk about like entertainment stuff and media, but it'll probably end up coming back to that anyway.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've got a whole list of stuff now that's like things that one or both of us have struggled with at some point.
Oh, okay, cool.
And maybe things that I've seen other people struggle with that aren't really either of us, but have like watched those people kind of go through stuff and seen what they did or didn't do to get on the other side of that stuff.
Okay, cool. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm definitely down to. I like the idea of condensing focus, I guess, trying to laser beam on something rather than having like a spread shot, right? Yeah
because when I've asked people have found out about that I know, and they're like, they want to come on, like, what could we talk about? I'm like, oh, whatever you want to. But now I'm realizing that's kind of silly.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because we got to have some kind of idea of where we want to go.
Okay. Well, is there anything else before we get to the actual topic of this episode? Is there anything else we need to look at in that light? Anything else that needs to be changed or adjusted or?
No, I think that that's pretty much that all that I was thinking at this point.
Okay.
And we can change things up as they go.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's nothing's set in stone, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So for this week, we are, I mean, as you saw from the title, we are talking about I guess what's called failure to launch syndrome, which I know it's like they added the word syndrome, but it's not a real diagnosis. It's just a set of circumstances that people end up in or put themselves in that what am I trying to say? Because again, it's not a formal diagnosis, but it is a epidemic that seems to be getting more and more common, right?
Yeah, it's just this whole kind of thing where you sort of fail in one way or another to sort of transition from being a child to a teenager to an adult. Like there's this sort of thing that happens where you sort of fail to make the jump in I don't know what to call it, like functionality and maturity.
Well, and a lot of the links that I looked at too, they stressed, like, even though that's the name that's used because of that Matthew McConaughey movie, it stresses that it's like, it's not a failure, it's a delay.
Yeah, I mean, some people, at some point you're going to have to get to that point. I mean, people will say that something grew them up, there's occasions where something just forces you to start to take on those responsibilities. I think that from what I understand of it, that it's not making the choice at a certain time to do that.
Gotcha.
And in some cases it's because of the fact that university doesn't, to me at least, university doesn't really get you ready for the real world. I mean, there's not very many jobs I can think of where I can maybe miss a couple days of work and still, get a good review from my supervisor without telling anybody, and going to work hungover the majority of the time. And because I can tell you, like one semester in school, I didn't have a class before 11 a.m. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays I had class at like noon, and I partied every single night. So it's like, I mean, pretty much all of them. So and a lot of it I think is a lack of parents really teaching or instilling values in people that are important.
Okay.
That a lot of the time, there's certain occasions in which you can have parents that really did have a good value system in place where their kids really just they just really don't get there. Like they don't start to really become adults and take on the responsibilities of adults. And it might not be the fault of their parents, but I think that parenting has a lot to do with it in many ways.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, it seems to be that is definitely in the research that I did for this, something that comes up a lot is the the parenting, and then also like a lot of mental health issues with the individual themselves.
Yeah, there's occasions in which, people may have differing levels of functionality, uh,
Hmm.
as far as, fulfilling responsibilities of what you typically think of as an adult. But there's other situations where it's a person that, they may not really suffer from depression, um, but they just uh, this before the term failure to launch was actually coined by the Matthew McConaughey movie.
Hmm.
I was reading an article about how a lot of people were staying at home after, college because their parents just made everything so freaking comfortable.
Hmm.
Like that their life at home was so great that there was really no reason to leave, and that their parents didn't insist that they go out on their own and do their own thing.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I think there's this idea that by never making your kids do anything difficult, you're somehow taking care of them,
Hmm.
or never pushing them to do something difficult. I mean, for me, I would say that I left home pretty late. I mean, I lived with my mom till I was 25.
Gotcha.
Um, and some people might say, well, I mean, I guess at least I was in my 20s, you know, but I would say that by some people's standards, that was a bit late. And I decided to do that because it was my decision to do so, not because my mom was like, you better get out on your own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Though it probably would have been a good thing if she did. Um, but I don't know. I think some people get to a point where they really want to do stuff on their own. Um, but on the other side, sometimes people leave home too early.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that definitely happens too. And it's and also too like you were starting to touch on there, it's it's hard for me to like put myself in their shoes because I've never had a kid, but I could see that like when people talk about being a parent and like the love they have for their kid, it's like I could see that it would be difficult to make them do something that they don't want to do. It's like, and you feel that yes, you're being like a loving parent or anything, but like, I think like your point, like you're bringing up, you may actually be doing them a disservice by doing that, right? Like a lot of what was pointed to, and a lot of the reading that I've done for this is like it seems to stem from like helicopter parenting a lot. When you've got someone that as a kid is like very, very protected by their parents, that is probably going to carry over into their young adulthood, which then will leave them with what is the term that is like learned helplessness, I think is the term
Yep.
that I've read that comes up with this. Yeah. So I can definitely see the parenthood as being a big driving factor here. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is that it's not by saying that the point that I'm making about kind of pushing the kid out, like, you don't live here anymore, go do your own thing, that it is important that the parent that's doing this behavior is, or that's doing this, maybe pushing the kid out on their own, has already done all the things necessary to teach that kid how to survive that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you have to have given them the tools to be able to do that, or else you really shouldn't be shoving them out of the house like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the helicopter parent thing is it's completely obnoxious, because for me it's like I don't, and maybe it's just the kind of person that I am, like I actually don't like when I see drill sergeants, or I think they're called drill instructors in the Marines, and sergeants in the Army, I can't remember.
Oh, okay.
When I see drill sergeants yelling in young people's faces and making them do stuff and making them make their bed again because one thing is out of place, I don't actually see any of it as cruel,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like there's any number of jobs that you can have in the military that are going to be really high stress. Because yeah, I mean, there's more things you can do than, like, be a rifleman in the Marine Corps. I mean, you can do many other jobs.
Yeah.
But like one of my cousins did IT and communication support in the Marines, but he was at a forward operating base. So
Mm-hmm.
there were times where if people were in the field and comms went down, that people could die.
Yeah.
So even though it's just like an IT and like telecommunications job, there's much more pressure. So it's good to have, before all that stuff happens, having someone yell in your face and essentially showing you that nothing you do is good enough and forcing you to try harder and harder, and just accepting the fact that all you do is push and do better and work harder and achieve a better result. And then at the end of that program, I mean, you get to leave and you get to carry the title of, you know, U.S. Marine.
Yeah.
And that's some kind of positive reinforcement, but it's the same thing with parenting. Like, I'm not saying that everybody needs to like yell in their kids' faces, wake them up at 4 a.m. and tell them to do laps.
That's what I got out of this.
But for me, it's like when I see drill sergeants, I don't see angry, mean people pushing kids around. I see people that have been around and been through things and done stuff and understand that by being as hard on these kids as they are, they can keep them alive. They're to me, they're not like angry, cruel assholes. They're people who truly care and want this person to be ready for whatever terrible shit could possibly happen. Because I promise, doing push-ups until your shoulders are on fire and your triceps are burning, and you can barely breathe, is not nearly as bad as having dust and rocks and explosions everywhere and watching your friend die in front of you. There's nothing you can do when you're training that can truly be as bad as that. So, I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, every kid needs to grow up to be a Marine, but it's kind of the same thing. So I just took it to the extreme there with, you know, making your kids do things that they don't want to do, because I mean, how much shit that adults have to do we want to do? I didn't feel like renewing my fucking driver's license today.
Yeah, I didn't feel like going to jury duty yesterday, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. You have to go to jury duty?
I did. Yeah, that was my whole day.
See what I mean? Like, I didn't feel like cleaning my apartment the other day. That I didn't want to do any of that stuff.
Well, yeah, I think that's like a big part of. Yeah, I think that's a big part of adulthood. Yeah, it's doing things you don't want to do, basically. Like, yeah.
And I think that when your parents force you to do that stuff when you're younger, because, you know, a lot of people, when they hear discipline, like you and I have had this conversation before, when they hear discipline, we talk about self-discipline that we have in certain things that we do. And then people think discipline is disciplining your kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Like punishing them. But the thing is that by disciplining your kid, you instill them with discipline.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because you teach them what's best to do.
Yeah.
And you make them do things that they don't want to do. There's all kinds of shit, like that whole "you'll thank me later" thing your parents say.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I've definitely heard that. Yeah.
And it's like, well, I kind of do a lot.
And I do think we were kind of like painting with a little bit of a broad brush there, you know, because it's like when you say drill sergeant, you know, that's a number of different people that you know handle their job different ways. So it's like if you picture, you know, I'm sure that like many people in the military have had a great experience with a drill sergeant, and then there's also like the what is that actor's name? The most famous drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket.
I can't remember his name.
Yeah, I forget his name too.
I know what you're talking about though.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and you're not allowed to act that way as a drill sergeant. Like you can't, they don't use profanity at all. At least not in boot camp.
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't know what it's like for special forces and other crap, but they don't like cuss at all. I mean, not anything that's like really out there. Like you're not going to hear them spouting off F-bombs left and right. But one of the guys that I work with that was in the Army, he and I were actually talking the other day. And he actually said that he had a good experience with his drill sergeant, but it all has to do with what kind of crew you are, like what kind of group of people you're training with.
Yeah.
If you got a bunch of people that are going to be like stupid and like, oh, you can't make me do shit. And like, you know, not do what they're expected to do, then you're going to have a terrible experience because, you know, everyone's going to be paying for that. But if you got a crew of people that are really serious and that, you know, exercise some kind of discipline, that, you know, you will have a good experience. I'm just using the kind of the stereotype, but for the most part, I mean, every drill instructor is like that. And the only reason why they're loud is so people can hear them.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
Seriously,
too.
That's a lot of it, is because if you expect them to do something, you need to make sure they know what to do. And to make sure that they know what to do, you need to make sure they hear you.
Well, there's
You can't
also
be pissed at someone. You can't be pissed at someone for not doing what they're told when they didn't hear you tell them.
True, yeah. Well, I mean, there's also part of it though that it's supposed to break you down to some regard so they can rebuild you stronger, right? Like, isn't that
Yeah.
also like it's kind of like designed into like the programs like that to do that? So
Yeah,
I don't
I
know
mean,
if you
it's-
don't necessarily want to do that like with a young child or anything, but I see exactly where you're coming from though.
A child doesn't need to be broken down in anything. They're raw.
Well, depending on the
That's
age,
all
yeah,
building.
true,
Yeah, I mean, like from like very young,
hmm
it's pretty much all building.
Well, it
So there really isn't any need for dehumanizing or brutalizing or anything like that.
depends on what they learn from those little assholes at school, though. They could
Yeah,
be.
that is very true. But a lot of that is just like admonishment. You don't really need to like. None of that stuff's internalized yet. They might hear shit and
Gotcha.
the whole like family standard thing, like, oh, that kid at school might do this, but in our family we that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's just upholding a standard for the group.
So where I was trying to find the list of the link that you sent me earlier. Oh, here we go. Here it is. So I'm looking at like one of the first things that came up when I Googled the failure to launch syndrome. One of the links leads to this Optimum Performance Institute. I think that's the one that you sent me that has like.
Yeah, that's what I sent you.
Okay, so yeah, it has like a list of, I guess the top symptoms. So to bring back to like the main point of what we're talking about here. So I guess someone with, and again, this isn't like an actual like. It's not an actual diagnosis. You wouldn't say like someone with this syndrome, but it's like someone that is exhibiting these traits. These are the symptoms that I guess you would look for. It's normally characterized with poor work ethic, low distress, which it's funny, we actually had a work ethic topic recently. I like that.
Oh yeah, we did.
Yeah, I didn't even think of it. Yeah. So like poor work ethic, low distress tolerance, low levels of motivation, low levels of persistence, high expectations of others without reciprocating. I thought that one was kind of interesting. Failure to take responsibility, lack of vision for future or long-term goals, lack of skills needed for adulthood, which it highlights like basic cooking and cleaning skills, and narcissism. And it does say a young person struggling with a failure to thrive may also experience diminished self-esteem and poor emotional self-regulation. Common times for a child to begin to display failure to launch symptoms are after high school graduation, at any point during a child's time at a post-secondary institution, and after obtaining a bachelor's degree. So those, I guess, are the temporal markers too. And then of course, like it goes into like ways to treat it or ways to help work against it. But yeah,
yeah, it's the whole like high expectations of others without reciprocating. There's a couple of, I don't know who I was listening to. There's a couple things I've listened to and a couple things I've read recently about children and how you have to make the child aware of others. So you can't give a child everything they ask for all the time and completely self-sacrifice everything of yourself, because then that shows that child that's what an interpersonal relationship is supposed to be like.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That everybody gives everything up all the time for them.
Yep.
And the thing is that you really have to like sorry, I forgot to turn the ringer off on my phone. Hope you can't hear that on camera.
I heard something. I wasn't sure what that was.
Yeah, but it's also not allowing the kid to like get their way all the time and things like that. Just if you do everything for the child and you sacrifice to an unhealthy point in yourself, then there's a problem there, because they need to be aware of other people and know that other people have feelings and needs, or else they're going to get to the point where they just want everything from everybody else and nobody will reciprocate. That's one problem that my sister has, or I don't know if it's still the case, but my sister's oldest son, like he has this tendency to always want to get to the fun part all the time, no matter what's happening. That no matter what's going on, there has to be fun somehow. So I think that's another thing that it's not. I don't know that it's anything that they did as parents, but it's just something that they've had to kind of deal with him to sort of help him through. And that's just another thing. It's like shit just can't be fun all the time. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah. You end up
I'm
with an
wondering,
unrealistic expectation of life, right?
yeah. And I wonder what this low distress tolerance thing is about. Do you think that's like in general, like meaning like everything from stress at work to like lifting weights to your laundry machine breaking?
I would, yeah, honestly, like I identify with that a lot. Yeah. I've likened it before that it's like I'm almost always on like an 8 or 9. So any little thing that goes wrong can very easily put me to like 10 in distress level. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's that
Yeah.
kind of like, yeah, I read it. I mean, it may just be me like projecting, but yeah, I read it as like that situation where any little wrench in the gears can be like can feel like a major issue, I guess, when most people would be able to like easily brush it off.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because there's a lot of stuff that can happen because some people, I think, it's like when you hear it's actually I do not remember where it is in the book, but in 12 Rules for Life, Jordan Peterson talks about the your car running smoothly, that's order, and then the
Mm.
second the car breaks down, that's chaos.
Okay, yeah.
That, you know, now all of a sudden this really sleek magical thing that was just sort of running with no problems, now suddenly you're aware of the fact that there's something underneath it, that
Mm.
there's all these
Mhm.
mechanical workings going on,
Yep.
and that one of them is now destroyed. So for some people it'll be like, oh my god, the world is going to fucking end, this is it, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do, I need my car to get to work, how the hell am I going to get to work the next 2 or 3 days,
Yep.
what the fuck do I do? Whereas other people will be like, well, the car is not working,
Mhm.
I need to take the car to a place where someone can take a look at the car,
Yeah.
and I need to determine how much this is going to cost.
Mhm.
So it's like this whole like action oriented thing where they just figure out what needs to be done, and they're really like calm and chill about it. Whereas like, and you know, I'm guilty of this too. I mean, there's plenty of occasions where it's not everything,
Mhm.
but there's certain situations where something happens. I'm like, ah, you
Yeah.
know, I can't think
Exactly.
of any
Yeah.
other way to describe it.
What happens for
Um,
me a lot too, I've realized that like it takes a good amount of effort for me to break down a problem and see its components rather than like I think a lot of people have that mind like you just said like with the car issue, you know, it's like a lot of people have that mind where you see a big problem in front of you and naturally they're able to break it down into the steps that need to be taken to rectify said problem versus like for me one of the examples that I like to use for this is like a huge knot, you know, like if you pull your headphones out of your pocket and they're tied into like a massive knot, a lot of people can start to easily see, okay, well I need to undo this part, then this part, then this part. You know, it's like for me, I see the crazy knot. You know, so like it takes me like an actual like conscious effort to be able to break it down. So I think that may lead to that type of low, how do they word it, low tolerance for distress or whatever. If you
yeah.
are, yeah, if you're able to easily see the components, it may give you a higher tolerance for it versus
Well,
if every problem almost like immediately seems overwhelming, you're just like, oh fuck, what do I do?
would you say that for you in particular, the occurrence of getting to the other side of a problem is in any way beneficial? Does it,
Hmm.
like, for instance, you know, you look at this whole mess of like knots in your headphones and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, what the fuck? Like, I'm so mad about this knot. What the hell shall I do? I'm just like, uh, you know, and you're freaking out. Then you actually get started on it and you're able to untangle it within like maybe a minute and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And then is there any sort of positive result from that carries over to next time?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that anytime you're doing that, you're getting better at it, right? So it's like
Right.
the more, yeah, the I've realized that like as I've grown, like the more that I have to take a big project or big problem and break it down into steps, the better I get at it and the quicker that I get to it. It still hasn't become second nature like I feel like it is for some people. It still has to be like a conscious planning step. But I feel like I'm definitely like I'm getting better at it and improving at it and it's only, yeah, I think it's only progress. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think that there's because I don't know that depending upon the thing, I'm trying to figure out if any of these are ones that I've had difficulties with in the past.
Mm-hmm.
The only, because it's like, I think the interesting thing is that most adults actually, if you look at a lot of these things that are defined in this, poor work ethic probably doesn't apply to the majority of people that are like living as like adults with adult responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
The low distress tolerance is possible. You can still have a low tolerance for that and still fulfill adult responsibilities.
Yeah.
You can go in and out of having low levels of motivation. I mean,
Yeah.
we even had an episode. God, we've done episodes on all this shit.
Pretty much, yeah.
Was it motivation versus inspiration?
We haven't done
And then-
narcissism. We should though. That's
yeah,
a
we
good one.
haven't. We should do that. That's a
Yeah.
good one. Then the persistence thing, I don't know that I really have problems with that. I don't think that that's something that you struggle with either, at least
Not
from what I know
really.
about you.
Yeah.
I think like once you're like, I'm gonna be good at this, you just fucking go.
If anything, I think I'm on the other side where whenever I set my mind to something,
persistent.
yeah. Well, I mean, you pointed that, you were one of the loudest voices pointing that out to me when I was like, the most into lifting and eating right. Where it was like you were trying to teach me, it's like, dude, there's got to be some balance here. You know, it's like, yes,
Yeah.
what you're doing is great, like, and everything. Like, I don't think you were negative about it, but it's like, at a certain point when you're, you know, lifting 6 days a week and only eating a very certain diet, you're probably taking it too seriously, right? You're probably being a little too persistent at that point.
Yeah, it's almost on the level of like asceticism, like almost like self-depriving or self-denying. But yeah, I mean that's yeah, you know, it's like, you know, eat stuff that's good for you, work out, you know, do all that stuff, but have a burger and a beer every now and then, you know.
Yeah.
So, but then I don't know that I've ever really had high expectations of others without reciprocating. In fact, I think that for me in the past, this is something I think I've gotten over. I've actually done another not actual medical diagnosis, nice guy syndrome. Robert Glover has a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy. Changed my life. I didn't like it that much, but read it if you'd like. It's geared toward men, but it's geared toward men, but it's good for everybody. Well, I thought you weren't a fan.
Well, no, like, it's not that I'm not a fan. It like we talked about it before. I'm a big fan of a lot of the advice that he gives, and I'm a big fan of a lot of I mean, almost all of it I think is rational and makes sense. It's just the focus on gender stereotypes and like Mr. Nice Guy is what bugs me. I think if it was a book written as just, you know, about people, I think it wouldn't have rubbed me the wrong way. I think that that's just like because of like some of my beliefs, I guess, on gender. I think that's where it lost me. But I still think I got something from it. And I still think that a lot of what he had to say was good.
So subject matter and purpose, good. Method, not exactly the best.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. Okay. And because of that method, because of it like triggering things that I believe, it may have like caused me to miss out on some of the important subject matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah.
So if you're watching / listening, check it out and let us know what you think.
Yeah, definitely.
We'd love to know. We'd love to hear your thoughts, because I think that with the whole like nice guy syndrome thing, because I kind of feel like I was I don't know, I want to say sufferer. I think that's just a problem I had to deal with. Like I think I was almost like having high expectations of myself and not expecting others to reciprocate.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So it's almost like somebody that had these sort of tendencies of what we're referring to as failure to launch syndrome. They might actually have gravitated towards someone like me, because I would have actually given them lots of things that they were asking for without any desire for reciprocating. But you know, once again, I mean, it's that's definitely for me at least, what we were just talking about. It's definitely a parent's thing, because they're the ones that teach you first how to interact with other people. But it's like, and also the failure to take responsibility part. I mean, I think that as a very young person, I definitely did that stuff. I mean, that's a normal part of being a kid, don't you think?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But then I don't think that in the time frames they're talking about, like, you know, after graduation of anything, that I was really at the point where I didn't want to take responsibility for things. Because I think that requires some degree of self-awareness too, don't you think?
Well, definitely. Yeah. I mean, you have to be I mean, I think almost by definition, like you have to be aware of the impact you're having to take responsibility for it, right? So I think that it's almost like a prerequisite.
Yeah. But I don't really know how I feel about this lack of vision thing, because I don't really understand. Oh, it says it also says long-term goals.
Yeah, for the future or long-term goals. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, I could see that, because obviously if you don't have any long-term goals, then why would you persist or be motivated or
Exactly. Yeah. A
have
lot of them
work
kind of go
ethic?
hand in hand, right?
Yeah. But I think that particularly the lack of skills needed for adulthood, that's
Mhm.
100% parents.
Yeah. I mean, it has to
Because
be, right?
that's those skills are all stuff you pick up from your parents. I mean,
Mhm.
cooking, cleaning, maintenance of certain things,
Mhm.
the fact that your car needs to have its oil changed, how
Yep.
to put air in your tires. It's amazing how many people's parents didn't teach them that. uh, and then but then, as you're saying, like the narcissism thing, all these things going hand in hand, I think that a lot of the stuff above the narcissism really contributes to that.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah.
But I don't know that every person that sort of does this whole failure to launch thing where they don't really transition into adulthood, I don't know that all of them are necessarily that narcissistic.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't think that I think that this is like similar to like the oh shit, which one was it? It's like the psychopath traits where it's like you don't
Yeah,
have
it's
to
like,
you don't have to check every box,
yeah, that's
but
true.
over a like large number, I think they're gonna these are the traits or the symptoms that you're gonna see the most often, probably. Um,
So,
yeah.
do you think that there's anything that happens later in someone's life that might contribute to these feelings outside of like their early development? Because that's kind of what I've been centering around the way that I've been talking about it.
Well, I mean, definitely, yeah. I mean, of course, like you pointed out, the lack of skills needed for adulthood clause, like basic cooking and cleaning skills, that is 100% learned from childhood. If you didn't have a parent or guardian teaching you those, where are you supposed to learn them from? So I think that like stuff like that, it's clear that that is a developmental thing. I do think that it's possible that, I mean, like they pointed out here, it's common times are it points out, after high school graduation, at any point during a post secondary institution, or after obtaining a bachelor's degree. I think that also other common times you may find this are just major life changes. If you've got someone who just went through a big divorce, they were living with their spouse, and something happened, and there's that relationship fell apart. You may find them moving back to the parents' house to get their try to get their get on their feet again, and ending up in this situation. So I think that, yeah, there could be major life changes too. They can really eat at your motivation, your persistence, your work ethic, and send you into a situation that they would fill a lot of these boxes here.
Agreed. Actually, for anyone on Twitch, I'm going to go ahead and put a link in for the page we're looking at, so you can
Oh,
actually
thank
read
you.
some more of this if you'd like.
Yeah, thank you.
There's
Good
also
call.
some interesting scenarios in here. We won't go through them, but there's a few like examples they give of what someone's life might look like from childhood to adolescence to like early adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that the thing that kind of gave a name to this sort of concept was the Matthew McConaughey movie,
Mm-hmm.
which and the main point of that was that doesn't he like meet a lady or something, and like he's like super cool and super attractive, but then she finds out he lives with his parents.
Um, I honestly, like, I don't remember the movie very well. I have heard that it's not very good. From what I from reading about this today, though, someone was mentioning the movie, and I think that the woman's Sarah Jessica Parker in the movie. From what I understand, she's actually like hired by the parents to
Oh
motivate him to
yeah.
get out of the house, basically. So yeah, I think that that's what happens is like she's very disappointed to find out that he still lives with his parents, but it turns out they hired her anyways to do this. And then I think that that's like the big M. Night Shyamalan twist or whatever. But
Okay,
sorry if we
yeah.
spoiled some failure to launch for you.
Oops, yeah, it's okay. It's actually because I saw the movie forever ago. Let me look it up. When did it come
I think it
out?
was '06.
Oh my god,
Yeah, I think it was
13 years
'06.
ago.
Yeah.
If this, that's just crazy. It could have come out. It may have come out before one of my nephews was born, which is odd. we're so old.
Yeah, we're getting pretty old, man.
But yeah, 2006, because I saw this, I think I was working at Blockbuster, aging myself some more, and I'm pretty sure I rented this and watched it with a girl I was dating. But I couldn't remember exactly. But there's a few movies like this where it's like, you know, something similar where someone's parents or whatever pay somebody to, or someone pays someone to, and then things get complicated and, you know, whatever. But so yeah, I think I remember this. But it's like, I don't know. It takes something that it maybe isn't necessarily that funny and like makes something funny out of it. But
Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of how to deal with most stuff that sucks anyway.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. I think the humor is a good way to deal with a lot of actual issues.
And I think that mainly because of the film, I've been focusing a lot on people living at home with their parents, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's happening. You could get out into the adult world, so to speak, and just fail miserably.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing is like I feel like because like reading through okay, so I'm moving past the section of the symptoms and I'm looking at the causes and influencing factors. And you know, it touches on like enabling and influencing factors being, you know, parenting styles, family experience, things like that. Of course, you know, like the developmental stuff that we were just talking about. It talks about substance abuse, it talks about mental illness, it goes into Asperger's and autism. It doesn't at all talk about just like the actual economic factors. I mean, you know, it's like I think that Lee was starting to bring that up in chat too, where it's like, yeah, there's yeah, exactly. He actually just said it, or not earn enough money to be able to afford to move out. I mean, there are some people that have to just be in the situation where they can't actually afford it, right? That it's not
I mean,
yeah, so it's
I don't want to sound like one of those like pull yourself up by your bootstraps assholes, but I realize that there's plenty of situations where people may be at a disadvantage, or they may not have a lot of things going for them, where they may not be able to get enough money together to really survive well. But there's a lot less of those instances, I think, than people probably realize. I don't know that there's as many situations where people are completely helpless in how much money they're able to make. I mean, I realized that actually, if you read the foreword for the book, how to win, is it win friends and influence people? He actually talks about how you can move up better in the workplace with soft skills, like knowing how to like work well with people and not be like a pushy asshole, and kind of so to almost be manipulative in a positive way.
yeah,
Like not all manipulation is necessarily bad. I mean, there's plenty of like manipulative things you can do to instill positive traits in your children. So it's not necessarily so like I get that there's economic factors that can contribute, but if you're someone that gets out into the adult world and you're just not ready for it, then I get it. But I mean, if you're an individual that if you actually are the Matthew McConaughey example where you're living at home, you got plenty of resources.
Yeah, in that movie, didn't he even like drive a Porsche and everything? Like he obviously
I'm pretty sure
had.
he did. Yeah. I mean, so it's like there's a lot of resources that could possibly be available. And if it's a situation where, you know, you get out, maybe bite off a little more than you can chew a little too soon. I mean, there's many occasions in which, you know, people's parents are just kind of like let them come back for a little while just to help out.
Yeah. Well, that's why they call this another name for this is like the boomerang generation, right? Where it's like, it's not necessarily like still being at home, but it's like maybe you've moved out X number of times and you keep finding yourself failing and coming back home. Yeah.
It's like a squirrel crossing the road. Like, hell yeah, I got this. Oh, fuck, I can't do this. And then, you know, you turn back and run back to the other side of the street for a little bit and then give it another try, you know. As long as you're trying to run across the street, the metaphorical street of adulthood, as the squirrel.
But I do think, I mean, I think that it is like, we do have to acknowledge that we live in a society. We live in a world where most developed countries that even have a minimum wage, that's not really realistically a wage that you can support yourself on, right? So it's like if you're in a situation where you're working a minimum wage job, unless you have the ability to find like a roommate or someone to live with, it's not actually realistic to expect them to be able to pay for, rent by themselves. And you know what I mean? Like that's just, it's just a
Yeah,
numbers thing where it's
but
like, well,
I
yeah,
mean, the other thing is I mean, what's stopping them from getting a roommate? I mean,
Mhm.
that's how I ended up leaving my mom's house, is because I found two other guys that didn't quite have enough money to do their own thing, but they wanted to
Mhm.
not live with their parents, so I ended up with two roommates.
Mhm.
So it's like I don't know necessarily what's stopping somebody. It's like I just think that wait, is Lee from the UK?
He's a Brit
Oh,
bomber. Yeah.
okay, that makes sense. You guys are running out of space so fucking quick. Yeah, like hell yeah.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. Come over here.
Yeah.
Like seriously, we want you here. Move here. Yeah, like we got plenty of room. There's so much room.
But yeah, but yeah, like he's saying, yeah, unless, I mean, if you don't have like a close knit group of friends or anything like that that you're trying to move out with, I mean, I could see why people, okay, you've got two options on your hands. You either put out an ad or answer an ad where someone's looking for a random roommate and you move in with someone that you don't know and it may not work out that well, or you stay living with this person or persons that you've known for your entire life. So I can understand why people would gravitate towards like, okay, well, fuck, if I don't actually have like roommates that I'm ready to move out with, maybe I'm just gonna stay here until there's a different option. So I can understand that. But like you're saying, there are other factors that are contributing to that. It's not just it's not simply an economic thing, right? It's got to be
Yeah,
there's
I
more to
mean,
it.
the economic side of things is there, but I mean, like my oldest sister, I think two of her three roommates were, no joke, classified ad
Mm-hmm.
roommates, and the actual classified ads in the actual newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, these are people that she didn't know. One of them was kind of not so nice, but paid the bills on time. So like, who cares?
Yeah.
It's like, lock yourself in the room, in your room, and don't talk to anybody, but make sure you do the fucking dishes. Like, I mean, that's all I have to say. And I'm not going to say that living with roommates was like a perfect situation for me, but I
Mm-hmm.
think that when you create some degree of discomfort for yourself, that makes you kind of want to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, honestly, like I'm grateful for the fact that, because okay,
But is that a good
sorry,
thing if you
mom.
kind of want to leave your house?
Well, I think, well, your parents' house or
Well,
wherever
no, I
you are,
mean,
the
like,
situation you're
no, I
in.
thought we were talking about like creating discomfort by ending up with roommates that you may not necessarily really like. You're kind of like, wouldn't you be creating discomfort in your house where it's supposed to be
Yeah,
your
but
one place where you are comfortable, right?
the point that I'm getting to is that then that may push you to get to the point where you can figure out what's necessary to make the amount of money that's required
Mm-hmm.
to not have roommates.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Because I mean, if my mom, sorry mom, she's a hoarder. I mean, she completely lost her shit at a certain point, and so
Mm.
like living at her place was not really the nicest thing ever. It was actually really stressful, and I have like almost a weird like aversion to clutter
Yeah.
now. But it's not like complete. It's not quite like unhealthy. It's not like it doesn't get in the way of like functioning, but
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't the most wonderful place to live. So I think because of that, I had a desire to not be there.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
I think that maybe had it been a little more, if it had been like a little more like nice or hospitable or whatever, maybe I would have stayed there longer. And I mean, I didn't pay to live there, so maybe I can't
Mm.
complain. But
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not really, actually. I'm almost thankful for the fact that it wasn't like some magical fairyland.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Gotcha. Yeah, and Lee, just like we're talking about, yeah, there are like health issues and everything that can play into that as well. Which I mean, the article we have pulled up mainly focuses on like mental illness and different things like that. But yeah, of course, disabilities can play into that. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get that. Like I actually have Becker's muscular dystrophy, so I have issues with like climbing stairs, and my legs are like really weak. Actually, if you see the bicycle behind me, I don't know if you know much about them, but the gears on the back wheel, that is a huge, huge, huge first gear. it's to make it easier to climb hills on it. So like I'm really slow going up hills, but it helps me actually get up them. So like I feel you on that. Like when I had the 2 roommates I had, it was really annoying because every time we go to a place and they'd be like, "Oh man, this is great." I was like, guys, there's fucking stairs.
Yeah.
Like, like unless you want to carry my groceries up the stairs for me every single time I go to the grocery store, then that's fine. Like if you want to move all my shit up the stairs, then that's fine. But I mean, so yeah, I feel you on that for sure. I mean, it's annoying too. Like when or if I go look for a new place, and it's like must be on first floor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I get that. And sometimes living alone is getting more challenging for me too. So there's some stuff that's more difficult than it used to be. Yeah. So there's that. But like I feel you on that stuff too. I mean, honestly, it's not the same as chronic fatigue, because I understand the amount of pain that you're probably in because of that. To me, it's just like everything I do is a strenuous workout. And that's not quite so bad. So like, I just want you to know, like, I'm not trying to make less of how you're feeling, bud. Like but I want you to know that like, I understand a little bit. So yeah.
Yeah.
On the subject of being relatable.
Yeah. So as far as like the causes and influencing factors go here, I think we've covered the developmental part of it a lot. That seems to be yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, this sentence right here, the way they word it, I think is perfect. Well-meaning parents are eager to make their child's life easy and remove challenging situations. And I think the more that is done, the more you end up with a child that does not believe that challenging situations need to be a part of life, basically, right? If you go through your entire childhood with every challenging situation being cleared out of the way for you, I don't think that you view them as actual, like, something that's necessary or something that is a normal part of life. Yeah.
And that would create the sort of low distress tolerance side of things because it's something that someone's not used to. So when something difficult happens or there's a struggle that occurs, then it's difficult to process and understand because it's something that you're not used to. And it's weird because when I hear someone say that they have it good because their life is easy, like I don't understand. Like there's no reason why your life should be like intolerably difficult. Like where every single moment of your existence is suffering, but also being a total cinch, like having no hardships or anything really difficult to overcome. Like that to me doesn't mean that someone has it good. It just means their life is boring.
I don't know. Well, I think for most people that would be kind of like their ideal, right? I mean, I think that humans kind of are naturally lazy, right? When it comes, and they don't really want challenges or things to I mean, we do for the betterment of ourselves and for the human experience, but I think it's like, if you took the average Christian and you asked them to picture heaven, I don't think their eternal heaven has challenges in it. You know what I mean? Like I think that people's ideal existence kind of is just everything being handed to them, everything, being pampered like completely. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I just think that is like when you talk about like someone's desires, I think that that's kind of like at the core of what a lot of humans do want.
And we're also kind of sold this idea that the goal of our lives is to save up enough money to where we don't have to work anymore.
Yeah.
But I don't get that at all. Like, do you know the actor and comedian Nick Offerman?
Yeah. Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec, right?
Yeah. Did you know that he's like a master woodworker?
Yeah. All the woodworking he does in that show is like actually him. Yeah.
So I kind of feel like that. Well, I mean, a lot of us think that actors have things easy, but acting is actually not that easy. There's a lot of stuff you have to do and a lot of things you have to remember, and there's actually a lot of fortitude that's required. It also depends who your boss is. Some directors are hard to work with. Not to mention every action star has to be absolutely jacked now. So that's even more work they have to do. But I think that Nick Offerman actually has a good bit of free time now, and I think that he feels like he needs to fill it up with something.
Yeah,
So I think
probably.
that's where a lot of the woodworking stuff comes from. I think that when people get to the point where they experience a life with little to no hardship, they actually find out it's kind of dissatisfying.
I could see that. Yeah. I mean, I think that it's one of the we think of it as an ideal, but when you experience it, I think you would then realize how bad it really is, right? It's the same thing with like immortality. Like I'm sure a lot of people, without giving it a lot of thought, would want to live forever until you're on year 5,000 and everyone that you've known is dead for a long time. And I mean, like at a certain point, you realize like, okay, this is not ideal.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think any movies that you watch or any books that you read that give a really honest exploration of an easy life or of immortality really stress the mundanity of living for a long time. Like Interview with the Vampire. Like Lestat is bored shitless because he's been living for thousands of years.
Yep.
I mean, he's just bored with fucking everything. Or the the TV series Altered Carbon on Netflix is like that with the people that have been living for a long time. And they're like basically watching death matches and like it's very strange shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of stuff where, you don't realize it. Like, Jim Carrey keeps preaching about how like, fame and fortune really kind of sucks. But then a lot of people will be like, well, that's easy for him to say because he has fame and fortune. Well, I mean, can you tell me what that's like?
Exactly.
Fameless, fortuneless person. Like you never. Of course, he's saying it because he does have those things.
Because he's experienced.
He can tell you they're not that great.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's a whole freaking book. If you read the Ecclesiastes and the Old Testament, it's a whole fucking book. People think it was written by Solomon, but who knows? Where he says like, I have all this shit. Like I have the best clothes and the best food and all these concubines and like there's nothing, like it's meaningless. The shit's boring. He's like, take it from me. And that was like thousands of years ago.
Yep. Yeah.
So regardless of if it was like actually the individual they think it is, somebody wrote that. Somebody had those thoughts.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So it's like people have been trying to tell us for a long time, and I've actually thought like, if I had all the money ever and I could just do whatever I wanted, I think I'd be fucking bored.
Maybe.
Like, well, think about it. What if, because I had this thought yesterday. I was playing Destiny 2.
Okay.
I got to level 35.
Congrats.
And I got, for the season, I got a hand cannon called Ariana's Vow.
Okay.
And I'd worked a lot to get there. Like I'd focused on getting that specific weapon in the game. And I was like, what now? Like I've already leveled all the way up in Crucible. I've already played a shitload of Gambit matches. I've already reset my infamy in that once. I got this thing and that thing. I got legendary this and exotic that. I'm like, well, what do I do? Like, oh, maybe I might just stop playing. And then I went back to the tower and I saw that the gunsmith has a mission there where you use the hand cannon, like revolver type gun that I just got, and you have to do a whole bunch of shit and then you get to upgrade it. I was like, woohoo, goal. Yeah. Here we go.
Yeah.
Playing Destiny 2 some more.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. So like, I mean, would you play the enjoyment of playing a game like that or of playing World of Warcraft or any like objective based sort of game where you're doing things, you have goals, is the fact that there's goals and things to do.
Yeah.
There's stuff to struggle through to get where you want to get.
Yeah.
So it's like, what joy would there be in playing the game if that stuff wasn't there? I kind of think of it the same way. It's like, what joy would there be in life if there wasn't something to do to overcome? I
would argue that there's always something to do and overcome, because the end goal of life isn't money. I would say the end goal is the things that money lets you experience. So if you're just like, yeah, it's not going to feel anywhere near as rewarding if you all of a sudden just have all of the money in the world. But that doesn't mean that that's the end goal. It means that now you have the resources to go and do literally anything you want to experience. So it's like, I mean, I would say that you could give yourself an infinite number of challenges or an infinite number of goals at that point simply because you have the resources to do so. But I do understand the point though. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a, but the other thing is that if you amass that wealth because of things that you've done and accomplished in life,
Mhm.
then you'll have a whole lot more satisfaction when you have it.
Yes.
And the experiences of the things that you're doing will be just as satisfying. But after a while, that would get boring.
I'm
And
sure
you'd
it would have
probably
to.
want to
Yeah.
have something to do, like there's only so many countries you can go to and so many different foods you can eat and so many things you can bungee jump off of.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm pretty
Um,
sure like it would have to get boring at a certain point. I'm just wondering if that point would be within a human life or if it would be enough to, like as us being finite beings, would it be enough to entertain you for the rest of your life and, it didn't yet get old. But if you had 100 more years, of course it would,
yeah, that's true. I see what you're saying there. That just on the scale of time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that we kind of made it on the sort of a purpose here to
Mm-hmm.
try to kind of tie this back to self-esteem,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we talked about kind of coming back to that. We've talked about self-esteem before. I don't remember what episode it is, but if you're interested, please take a look.
That was an early one. That was like
Yeah,
five
it
or
was like
six.
way
Yeah.
way back. I don't even know. Is that one on Apple? I think that one's only on Spotify.
Maybe, yeah, because I think
Um,
Apple rotates them out. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah.
It's on YouTube. I know that.
Oh yeah, you can find it on YouTube for
Yeah.
sure. It was a fun episode.
Yeah.
Because I guess the other thing is that my ideas of self-esteem and what it is are like kind of different than
Mm-hmm.
what the words actually mean. We spent a lot of time on semantics on that one. we do that a lot.
Well, it does happen that like to really dissect a topic, you have to understand what you mean by the topic first, right? So it's like I don't think it's like pointless semantics, but it is like we need to really touch base on like,
Yeah.
okay, what is this actually saying? Like, yeah.
Yeah, we
Wow,
have
that
to
was
know,
actually
like, what-
episode 2.
Was it really?
Yeah, that was literally 4 months ago. Yeah.
Wow.
16 weeks ago today. Yeah.
Well, it's about damn
18
time we
weeks, holy shit.
revisited this.
Yeah,
God,
yeah,
jeez.
exactly. And even the, I
So-
mean, the link that we brought up right here, it even like mentioned self-esteem. That it was, yeah, it like specifically went into that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, how is it that you're seeing that self-esteem really ties into this?
Well, I mean, especially looking at the symptoms, I think it's gonna be like a chicken and egg type thing where if you're someone with poor work ethic and low levels of motivation, low levels of persistence, failure to take responsibility, you're going to be an individual with low self-esteem probably. However, if you're an individual with low self-esteem, you're probably also going to have poor work ethic and low motivation and low persistence. So it's really like, I'm not sure where the cause and where the effect is, but they definitely do go hand in hand.
Yeah, it's yeah, I kind of agree with you. Have you ever heard the song Questions by Common?
Yes.
He asks like these hilarious questions in the song. He says, why do I need ID to get ID?
Yeah.
If I had ID, I wouldn't need ID.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of the same thing where it's like, well, what if I need to have these things if I need to have self-esteem to be these things, but I need to be these things to have self-esteem, well then what do I do?
Exactly. Yeah. There is kind of like a vicious cycle that goes on there, right?
But yeah, I think that's where I think that's kind of where the idea of discipline, how you and I tend to talk about it kind of comes in, because you just have to sort of do it.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to kind of do what you need to do to make things happen. So it's like, I was actually listening to, I can't remember who it was, but it was some dude that has like I think he has like a workout channel on YouTube, Worked Out with Chris Hemsworth.
Okay.
And he was talking to Chris Hemsworth about how he keeps going, as crazy as he does with the working out and such. Because even when he wasn't playing the Thor character, he was in good shape.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh.
And then he'd get really, really big for the for the movies, and then he'd still stay in really good shape. The dude works out all the time, because to be able to get in that kind of shape to be in those films, you have to have a baseline of fitness, I guess.
Yes, yeah, I would
But
agree. Yeah.
he was saying that he's a really firm believer in momentum.
I'm sorry,
That you
in
just
what?
kind of
Oh,
like momentum. Like
I'm sorry.
as
I heard an L. I heard lamentum. I was like, what is lamentum? But okay.
oh no, it's a new style of poetry.
It sounds like a drug, like brought to you by Seroquel. We lamentum. Ask your doctor about lamentum today. Side effects may include diarrhea. I'm letting nobody.
And okay, yeah, you're right. It really does. But you know what? We should do like a parody commercial and put it on the YouTube channel.
About lamentum? I'm down with that. That's actually pretty funny.
But he was saying that like momentum is something that he really believes in, that if you start and then you go one day and then you go the next day and then you go the next day and you continue this like sort of working out and stuff like that.
Yep.
But it's like you got to start somewhere. And,
Yeah.
you know, I just sort of, if we're trying to get to the whole. Okay, so the way that well, you know this, but some of the listeners might not. The way that I define self-esteem isn't necessarily exactly what the words mean. It's kind of like self-esteem to me is valuing yourself enough to fulfill the potential that you have.
Okay.
Some people have more potential than others, but all of us have some potential, usually above where we are. And actually that potential, the ceiling for that potential raises as you go on, because there's more things that you haven't done that you're increasingly more capable of.
Okay.
So yeah, I recently went through a period of time where I wasn't really valuing myself enough to do things that were good for me.
Okay.
So I just got to this point where, and this sounds nuts, but I'm going to say it anyway. Monday morning, over the weekend, I had this point where I had a conversation with my girlfriend that I thought that she was like.
Was this just this past weekend, or is this?
Yeah, it was this past Sunday, I think was when. Yeah.
Okay.
And I said that I felt like she was accepting mediocrity from me and that she didn't challenge me. And then I woke up the next morning and she like left for work really early, and I realized like, oh wait, I'm blaming you for what I'm willing to accept for myself. Like I'm projecting that onto you. I'm not challenging myself. Like I've got plenty of friends that do difficult shit that can challenge me if I want them to.
Yeah.
But I'm not challenging myself, and I'm accepting this from myself. So that's some bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was like, I'm going to go back to sleep for the next 90 minutes, and then I'm going to think about this. So then I woke up and I took a shower, and I sent her a text and kind of told her like where I was at, and that I apologized for what I said because it was just me being stupid. And like, in all seriousness, this sounds nuts. I looked in the fucking mirror and I pointed my finger at the mirror and I was like, I am fucking sick of your shit. Like, no more of this crap. This is fucking pathetic. This is not how you live. You clean shit up. You fucking pussy. Like,
but like, I mean, what is the shit you're sick of though? Because it's like, I mean, from my perspective, like, you're doing well, man. Like, I don't know what the.
I was staying up like super late. I hadn't worked out in months. I've barely ridden any of my bicycles.
Okay.
I've been spending a disproportionate amount of time playing video games. Like video games are great and I enjoy them, but they need to fit into a schedule just like anything else.
Gotcha.
Like,
yeah.
And I actually even got to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna goal orient myself with the games too. Like I have 90 minutes in the schedule for the evening. I have 90 minutes to do this, and this game. And then it's like I either triumph and I finish the stuff in an hour and a half, or I don't.
Okay.
And I take that failure just as seriously as any other failure. And I haven't lifted at all. And so now, like this week, so Monday night I went to sleep at 9. I woke up at 9:30. I woke up at 5:30. Coffee, gym by 6 o'clock.
Nice. Okay.
Home, read a little bit if I have time. Maybe play a quick, match in a game, shower by like 7:15, out the door by 7:45.
Okay.
So now like I'm back on it, I'm drinking, San Pellegrino right now, who doesn't sponsor us, but hey, San Pellegrino, if you'd like to sponsor us, I'm drinking your stuff.
Nestle Splash is also good.
Yeah. Somebody sponsor us. Wait, actually, is this a Nestle company?
Probably. They're all Nestle companies.
Yeah, you're right. I'll look at the label later. But yeah, it's just stuff that I wasn't really willing to tolerate. But it's like one day I just decided, okay, that's that.
Yeah.
But now I feel like I'm gaining some momentum.
Good.
So
Yeah.
it's like
yeah.
if one day you can decide that you want to kind of value yourself, then you just try this one new thing.
Mm-hmm. I
And
remember
then
like hearing someone talk about like the hardest part of your workout is putting your gym clothes on.
yeah, it's true. It really, really is. The other thing is, and I don't know if we've talked about this before, but this may be beside the point. The most important thing for me about working out is having fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you need to do a routine that's fun for you. Like, and then when it gets boring, do something else.
Yeah.
Just make sure you're still enjoying it, because the difference between people that go to the gym regularly and those that don't is most regular gym goers just like it.
Well,
But if I get to the point where,
I was gonna say to a certain extent though, because going back to being an adult, some of it is doing stuff you just don't want to do, and it's like like I've always enjoyed lifting. I've always hated cardio. Cardio is so fucking boring to me, but I understand how important it is, and you have to do it. It's like no matter, there's no way that I can make cardio fun for myself, but I realize that it's an important part of fitness and it's a necessary evil. But
hey, what if when you were doing cardio, you could like enjoy the outdoors and like some warm sunlight on your face and watch the trees move in the wind and hear nothing but the sound of your tires against the pavement. Hey, you see that thing behind me? Just saying. Hey, you want to buy a mountain bike?
No, I'm good.
Not that one. Okay.
I got rid of mine not too long ago.
So yeah, but yeah, no, I get it. I understand. I mean, it's something that's necessary, then you just kind of have to do it. And there's some days where even if you're someone that enjoys lifting weights, you're just not going to be feeling it some days. And then on those days, you just kind of do it. But it's like, I don't know how you can teach someone to value themselves. I think that you have to create some kind of like cognitive dissonance, where you do something that's incongruent with who you believe you are.
Okay.
And then that can be like, if you do something that's good for you, even though you don't feel like doing something that's good for you, or you don't think that you deserve it, I think that it creates some kind of dissonance that shakes that self-image just a little tiny bit.
I know for me that was not the case. I don't know why I've had such an issue with that, but I know that it's like, I mean, even when I was taking fitness as, to, like we talked about earlier, like to an almost extreme sense, when I was in the best shape of my life, I still did not see myself in a different light. So I know that that's not going to work for everyone, but I do think you're onto something there though.
But I'm also trying to relate this to things. I mean, obviously that's one thing that's good for people, but I'm trying to relate it to many other things too. Like, just if the thing is that you're discouraged, that I don't know, just going by the time periods highlighted in the article we've been mostly reading from here. If when you get out of school and you're mainly just because I have a friend who has a degree in women and gender studies, she got out of school and there's just nothing for her to do. And it's like discouraged and feeling like, because her grandmother actually paid for her school, feeling like she wasted her grandmother's money and she didn't really feel like doing anything. She had no motivation. She felt discouraged because she realized that while the subject that she was studying was very interesting to her, and I'm sure it's an interesting subject for most people, that it wasn't something that was really going to benefit her in the job market. And it would be just sort of going and looking for a job at something that has nothing to do with what you studied, because there's really not a lot of jobs outside of academia. Where a degree in that sort of social study is really going to be beneficial. And pretty much all the jobs for that sort of stuff are taken.
You mean
So
at
it
your
would
company
be,
right now they're not hiring in the gender studies department?
oh, uh, we recently we we recently decided that the gender studies department was no longer necessary for the betterment of the corporation. So
Gotcha. Okay.
they decided to tighten up the budget on that and get rid of the gender studies department.
How
But
regressive of you. Jeez.
yeah, I mean, hey, it wasn't my call. I'm not a big wig.
True. Yeah, true.
But I am good at blaming people to get paid more than me for things. So there's that.
That's a skill.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's just like going out and looking for a job, even though you don't want to, might be something beneficial. And the other thing is that in situations where somebody forces you to do that, then there's also that creates some dissonance between like, you know, how you're feeling about yourself and what you think you should do and what you're actually doing. And over time that can sort of change how you feel about you. So, you know, I was at a point in time where my self-esteem was quite low for a few months, where I wasn't thinking, I was discouraged in every way possible and I saw no value in myself. And then, you know, one day I woke up and was like, this is fucking stupid. So now like I'm back on it. And now that I'm doing stuff, I still kind of felt a little bit yesterday and even somewhat today kind of crappy. But just the fact that I'm doing things that are beneficial to me, that people do when they value themselves, it's sort of pushing me closer to feeling that way too.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's like the
but it's
whole
different.
oh, go
It's
ahead,
different
sorry.
for someone that's never had any self-esteem, though. Like someone that doesn't
Exactly.
even know what it's like. That's a lot different.
But it's kind of like following the idea of like even when you feel completely shitty, if you force yourself to smile, your brain takes that as an input and you start feeling better. So
Yeah,
it's like it's like that where it's like, okay, if I act in a way and do the things that someone that values themselves does and acts, then that will cause me to start to value myself just by the virtue of doing it, right?
yeah, and a lot of people that are listening probably think that's bullshit. Oh, you fucking try it. Just see, it works. I'm not kidding. It sounds stupid. It sounds ridiculous. Even, no joke, giving yourself a hug every morning will work too.
How do you give yourself a hug?
You know, you just kind of wrap your arms around you and squeeze yourself. You basically just fold your arms. And then you like, you know, grab yourself and do, oh yeah, I love me. I love me. I can't believe I'm hugging myself on
I'm hugging
camera.
myself.
See, there you go. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
I don't feel better.
Whoa.
I don't feel any better. I feel worse. I feel way worse. Something backfired. Yeah, all right, the big dog calls bullshit on that.
Somebody give me comment. We'll try it then. Just saying, try it. I mean, you won't, but because you're afraid that I'm right.
True. That might be true.
It's weird, but I mean, like, just that whole like love yourself thing. It really is an important thing. And I'm not talking about narcissism. I mean, like having a healthy value for yourself, which I mean, that is self-esteem. But you know, I'm not saying you need to look in the fucking mirror and tell yourself how happy you are. Like content people don't sit in the fucking mirror and tell themselves how happy they are. Wasn't that in Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck? It was in a book.
Yeah, I think so. That sounds about right. Yeah. But yeah, so that's the third section here. I don't want to read through these examples or anything, but I mean the title of the section though, how bad is it and what kind of help do you need? So where do we go from here? I feel like we've got a good understanding of what failure to launch syndrome is. I feel like we've got a good understanding of the causes that may have gotten someone into that situation, but now what do they do to get themselves out? We were starting to touch on that there, but like more specifically to this issue. What do you suggest? Like in your experience, what helped you, I guess?
I mean, I've said this many times, I think, on the podcast about certain things. I mean, for me, if you can afford it, seeing a therapist isn't a bad idea. Or if you have a friend who you know has your best interests in mind, who truly cares about you, then you can just talk to them about what's going on and how you're feeling and see what they can do to help. But you have to keep an open mind, whatever it is that you're going to do. Because I mean, when you can talk to somebody honestly, especially if you're paying them, and interesting thing. So a therapist is actually a good way to increase your self-esteem, because what you're doing is you're paying someone to take very good care of you.
Okay. Yeah.
So by doing that, you're valuing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a relationship that there's some reciprocity. Obviously, you're paying them,
Yeah.
but this is someone who you're paying specifically to completely focus on you
Yeah.
and your well-being and what's best for you. Now, if the problem is, if the main symptom or the main difficulty you're having is narcissism, well, maybe that won't be the best thing ever. But even then, that individual, the therapist, can help you navigate that.
Mm-hmm.
And like, like, we're not, once again, this is not like an actual disorder, right? So when we say narcissism, we don't mean narcissistic personality disorder or like an antisocial, like sociopath or anything like that. It's like just someone that's a little more self-absorbed than normal.
Yeah. Just narcissistic traits. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, therapy is something that can help you with just about anything, because they can help you to navigate the things that you're feeling, or the things that you're doing or not doing, and figure out the best way to get you through that. Or there's someone from the outside that's not stuck like inside your head, so they can observe like what's going on. If it's a good therapist, because some of them suck.
I do like that though. That is a very good point, that it is strictly investing in yourself.
Yeah.
And by doing that, you're showing yourself that you at least think you're worth something, right? If you thought you were completely worthless, you wouldn't be doing that.
Right. And even if you think you're completely worthless when you walk in, over time, having this like therapeutic relationship with this person, you'll begin to slowly value yourself more.
Okay.
But it's also like, you gotta be open-minded and really open up to it. And I don't really know. I think that it's also, I think, good. See, this is hard though, because I think that if you're having these difficulties with the whole failure to launch thing, then maybe these are things that will be difficult for you to do. But having friends that push you, like people that care enough about you to push you a little bit, and to maybe make you aware of things that you might be doing that aren't good for you, or that you could be doing better. So it's like, I don't know, man. It's like, and a lot of it just requires people to be like accountable, like to hold themselves accountable for the things that they do.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Because the thing that bothers me the most is that a lot of these traits, like that we're talking about, involving this whole failure to launch syndrome thing, it's a lot of it is stuff that you hear like, oh, those stupid millennials.
Yeah.
Like it seems to be a lot of stuff that you hear people say whenever they say that kind of thing. But it's like, it's weird, because it's like you need to act like an adult to remedy these things, but you don't have tendencies to act like one. So where do you go? I mean, I think therapy is a good place to start.
Well, I mean, it does make sense though that these traits are, like you're saying, almost being identified with an entire generation when you look at how prominent this really is now. It's like, I think the numbers that I was looking at, it's like young adults between like 18 and 31, it's almost like in the 30 percentile are falling into this category. So it's not like it's a small percentage. It seems to be a large number of young people, especially young men.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is that whole having things too easy. That a lot of people in that age group have had well-intentioned parents who didn't let them do anything for themselves. And like I can tell you, like, maybe this is a little more personal than people are looking for, but I mean, I can tell you that so I raised a kid that I lived with a woman that I was dating, and actually kind of raised her kid for a few years. And one thing that I would do is like just little things. She was having some trouble buttoning her jeans,
Mm-hmm.
and she asked if I could do that for her. I was like, no, you try. And then she's like, I can't get it. I'm like, no, keep going. Go on. Like, don't stop. Keep on going. And then she kind of got to the point where she started to like, she like sat on the floor and started pouting after maybe a couple minutes. And I was like, what are you doing? She's like, I can't do it. I'm like, well, not if you sit there on the floor and cry about it. It's like, get up, try again. And so she gives it another try. And then eventually she's able to get the button through the hole in the jeans.
Mm-hmm.
And this kid was so stoked.
Yeah, yeah.
She was so excited. All she was buttoning some jeans. And I was like, hey, look at that, high five. And it's like, the harder it is and the more time it takes to get there, the more excited you're going to be when you do.
Yeah, exactly. When it's something
Like,
that's earned through effort, it's definitely,
like, buttoning your jeans is like not that big of a deal to like someone that's grown up. But if it's a difficult thing for the person that's doing it, well, I mean, unless you have
not
like
easy. I mean, I struggle with it from time to time. So let's not make it seem like it's so trivial, but
okay. That's right. Ty's better at unbuttoning jeans.
Hey.
Woo.
Yeah. But no, that is a good point though, that it is completely depending on the upbringing. You're either going to set the child up for the ability to learn that they have the potential within them to learn to do something and to actually do it, or you're going to set them up with the immediate reaction to always go to someone else to do it for them. Correct?
Yeah, I think so. And maybe the most beneficial thing would be that since we can really point to parenting and upbringing for a lot of this stuff, maybe it's not as easy for us to help each other or to help ourselves with this, but maybe we can be better parents than the ones before us. That instead of raising children in a way that didn't prepare them to be successful adults and then blame those kids for not being successful adults, maybe we can try to make an effort ourselves with the children of our generation. I mean, not even like our kids, but like if you have nieces or nephews, then you can also help them too. I mean, I do the same thing with the kids in my family, like my sister's kids. So maybe there's not a lot we can do about the existing people, but we can maybe sort of pay it forward. I mean, I'm not saying that there isn't like, I'm not saying there's nothing that can be done. I'm not saying people can't be helped, can't be saved.
Yeah, I was about to say, let's not call them all lost causes, right? But that is a good point though, that addressing what seems to be the root cause to a lot of it is going to do more good than just trying to treat the symptoms.
Right. Yeah. So even for the individuals that are feeling it, you can look back to the things that activities and reactions and reinforcements like that your parents had like with you and for you, and you can identify what things perhaps they could have done better. But here's the thing that makes me really, really angry about people is that when you figure these things out about what your parents could have done better, don't blame them. You're an adult, like do something about it. I've even had like some members of my family, not my immediate family, have like gotten old enough and like then turned around and blamed their parents for all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, well, fine, your parents screwed up. Who cares? Mine did too. Like, do something about it. So it's like whenever if someone can figure out, the underlying causes and the things that may have happened in their childhood and the things their parents could have done better, then it's your responsibility to unfuck your upbringing.
Yeah. Well, like you're saying too, I think the most important thing is don't make those same mistakes. If you end up having a kid too, make sure that you're changing and not just repeating the same cycle, right?
Yeah, like you want them to actually be like better than you were. And the thing that drives me up the freaking wall is like sometimes people that have children don't recognize that the things that their parents did that they didn't like or upset them when they were younger are actually the reason why they're doing so well now.
Mm-hmm.
and all they think about is how annoying or angry how annoyed or how angry they were with their parents when they did this thing, and that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then they don't do those things with their kids, realizing that those exact things that piss them off about their parents are the reason why they turned out so well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's I love the I think it's Joe Rogan that says it, but it's like you don't like pressure creates a diamond, right? It's like if you're growing up in a very safe, like coddled existence, you're probably not going to end up being this person that gets shit done. But if you're in a situation where you had to fight for everything that you had to work hard for everything, that's what instills these characteristics that end up with a strong person that's going to make sure that shit happens, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree with that completely. And I think Joe said that a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the idea. I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me. There's that hardship can make a person. Like one of my I think you're a fan of his too. One of my favorite bodybuilders, Kai Green.
Oh yeah, yeah, I like high.
He had a shitty childhood, man. He's
Yeah.
faced a lot of adversity in his lifetime,
Yep.
and that stuff like has just made him very hungry for whatever sorts of triumphs it is that he chases after in life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really cool. But there's still occasions where like it's funny. You can have absolutely nothing going for you and then kick all kinds of ass, and you can have everything going for you and be a miserable fuck up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. And in all reality, it's probably easier to slide into both the positions you just mentioned, right? Like if you've got everything going for you, it is way easier to end up being a miserable fuck up. And if you're coming from a horrible situation, it's I don't not easier, but it's like you're almost predestined
Yeah.
to learn the skills that you need to learn and do what you need to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just at that point it's just all about applying those skills, and then if you
Mm-hmm.
can do that, then at the right time in the right places, then you can make things work out for you pretty well. No, I mean not in all situations, but in many. I mean, you at least have the tools to succeed.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And there's situations where it's interesting because I think that we're at a point where the more prosperous families, they need to create difficulties for their children.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't do that, then you won't teach them anything about how to overcome those difficulties later. And that's something like a goal that I have for the children in my family is that, it's going to be, come on, stay with Uncle Distance for a week. And then we're going to do fucking miserable shit for like 4 or 5 days. And it's going to suck so bad.
That sounds
But then
rough.
after that, all the fucking chocolate cake you want.
Okay. So there's a
And we're
balance
gonna go
there.
to a heavy metal show.
Okay.
And I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna, maybe it depends on which kid. Some of them I think would be mature enough to not do anything stupid at a metal show, but
If you
do all the cool uncle stuff, because I mean that's one thing that I mean I don't know about you, but don't you feel better about relaxing when you've worked really hard?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, when you feel like you've earned it, it feels much better than just taking an entire day doing nothing in
Yeah.
bed, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean sometimes it's necessary to just sort of like give yourself a break, but I do think that it feels a lot better when you've done things to earn it. So it's the same thing with the kids.
Well, I would argue that
Um,
if it's necessary to give yourself a break, that's because you've been doing things to earn it.
Yeah, usually.
Right.
I mean, most of the time you're burned out because you've been working your ass off.
Yeah, yeah.
And then that's another thing that the big dog in chat mentioned just now is letting kids fail. Yes, 100%. And in many situations, if it's a safe place to do it,
Yeah.
like sometimes you can let them fail and shoulder the burden of all the consequences of that failure and don't bail them out because they need to understand like what happens when you mess up,
Mm-hmm.
and then they need to be able to take those consequences and then also to learn from them and then to overcome the failure that they've committed.
Yeah.
Obviously in a place that it's safe. I mean, not like,
yeah,
you
that's
know,
a big part.
yeah, it's like, here, climb that rock wall with no safety.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not that, but yeah.
Or just
But
like
yeah, I
even at a
agree.
certain point, if you know, if it comes down to like, if you know kicking your son or daughter out is gonna mean they're literally gonna end up on the streets homeless, is that really the answer? Like, yeah, that's letting them hit rock bottom, but that could also be like, at a certain point, you're kind of just resigning that their, you know, their safety is not really your concern at that point. So like, there's got to be a limit, right? But
Yeah, and I would say that if you kick your kid out of the house and they end up like homeless, then you probably didn't prepare them very well anyway. I think that you have no right to throw your kid out if you haven't prepared them.
Okay.
Or I mean, you know, and the thing is there's no guarantee that they'll end up like, you know, homeless.
True.
They could.
Yeah. True.
They it might be more probable that they do, but there's it's not necessarily a definite there. The other thing, oh crap, I completely lost my train of thought on that.
Oh, my bad, man.
It's all good, no problem. It was on the subject of failing, but I can't remember exactly what. Oh yeah, did you ever watch the show Penny Dreadful?
I've seen a few episodes of it. I didn't watch it like in order though, so I don't know a
So,
lot of the story arc.
are you familiar with the character Dorian Gray?
Yes.
He's like eternally young and beautiful and charming, and there's
Mhm.
an actual painting that shows his actual state,
Yes.
his actual age. I think the original story was that if he ever gazed at the painting, he would die. He'd essentially become the painting
That
itself.
sounds right. Yeah.
There's a few variations where he doesn't, but there's one episode where it's Miss oh my goodness, I can't remember her name. Miss Ives.
Okay.
I forget the actor that plays her, but he's on Dorian Gray, who's a very charming, you know, beautiful man. He can dance. He's cultured, and Miss Ives actually tells him that she doesn't want to see him anymore.
Okay.
And he begins to like weep, and he's like, I don't know this feeling. I don't understand. I've never felt this before. I'm very confused. And he continues to wipe his eyes. And she says, Mr. Gray, that feeling is called rejection.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like Dorian doesn't know how to handle it
Yeah.
because it's never happened.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with failures. Like you need to like screw up at some point and have to deal with the consequences of that, so you understand what failing is like.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well,
and,
just
you
like
know,
we talked about earlier with like getting, breaking a problem down, the more you do it, the easier it gets. Failure the first time can seem overwhelming, and the more you fail, you're just going to get better at it. And it doesn't sound like you want to be better at failing, but I think you do want to be better at learning how to handle failures, right?
Yeah, and a cliche that's used in business a lot that I actually kind of despise is failing forward.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Um,
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of, I understand what they're saying, but I don't like the wording. It's silly, but it's kind of that, you know, like as you fail, then you can get better at it.
Yeah.
And you know, that's when you know the kid that, you know, doesn't have to study and aces every test in high school, fucked when they get to college.
Yeah.
Because like now they have to work. It's the same sort of thing. And I don't know how to help a kid like that. But it's sort of the same kind of idea.
Mm-hmm.
But and maybe some of this whole failure to launch stuff is that when you get, because another thing that kind of upsets me is I feel like a lot of our parents told us that you have to have a degree or else you are nothing.
Yeah.
And if you get a degree, that opens up all these doors.
Yeah.
So then you get out of school, you apply for 5 jobs,
Mm-hmm.
you don't get any of them.
Yep.
And if you're not good at failing or being rejected, then that will just finish you,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll just be done.
Well, in all
So,
fairness, like it doesn't detract from your point, but it was more than just our parents. Like I remember, I mean, I'm still upset at
I
like
mean, we were indoctrinated in school about that too. Yeah.
I mean, even just like the people selling university to you, the counselors like at the university, like, oh yeah, here's what you can expect to make as a graduate, like da. And it's like what I ended up making is well below what the expected, quote unquote, expected average income for an entry level in my field would be. So like Yeah,
Oh yeah. They were like entry level accountant, $120,000 a year.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I think I
but
was told that like an entry level graduate in economics can expect to make like 75 to 80 grand a year. And it's like I don't think I make a third of that. Yeah, I make
they,
well, yeah. Yeah, I make below a third of that.
the statistics might have overcompensated for inflation.
Possibly, yeah,
Oh yeah,
possibly, yeah.
yeah. Eva Green, that's the name of the actor. I was trying to remember. Vanessa Ives is
Yeah.
the full name of the character.
Gotcha.
But yeah, but yeah, it's really unfortunate that that's sort of something that we were all taught. Because do you know who JP Sears is?
No, I don't.
Really? You never saw Ultra Spiritual Life?
I don't think I have. No.
He's one of my favorite YouTubers ever.
Okay.
I think his channel is called like Awaken with JP.
Okay.
It's like all this like satirical shit, like where he makes fun of fucking everyone. And I don't remember the video, but he was like, "You need to understand the importance of a bachelor's degree. You need to go get a bachelor's degree, and then everybody else will get a bachelor's degree. Then everyone will have bachelor's degrees, but that will not detract from the value of how valuable a bachelor's degree is, even when everyone has them."
Yep. Yep.
And he says shit like that all the time. Like
Yeah.
he even does a video about, actually, I should send it to you, one about like the 7.5 secrets to a six pack.
Oh, sweet.
And
Okay.
he goes, "This worked for me, and it'll definitely work for you because we're different." But he says shit like that all the time.
That's
but
funny. Yeah.
it's sort of the same thing that I think that stuff has become like less valuable. And I think it's an expectation that people have that when they get done with school, they're pissed off when all the shit that they were told was going to happen doesn't. It's an expectation that's ridiculous. And the other thing is like, you know, what's his name? Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like he actually keeps talking about the value of vocational school. And one thing that really upsets me, and you know, I think this is something that could be helpful too, is that it upsets me when someone looks down on one of the plant operators that works in the plant at my company, because those operators are actually doing some difficult work. It's not an easy place.
Yeah.
You have to understand, you have to have some basic understanding of like math, and at least understand the logic of how the product like reactions and stuff work to be able to put the right stuff in at the right time and the right amount. And in the winter it's cold, and in the rain it's wet, and in the summer it's hot and humid as hell. And I think that it's really unfair when individuals attempt to devalue people that do stuff like that work hard for a living.
Yes.
Because it's like, and also this stuff, do you remember the "It's Still Real to Me, Damn It" guy?
Yeah. Yeah.
For the
pro
wrestling
thing. Yeah. Yeah.
The thing he says in there about like what they've done to their bodies over the years, it's the same thing with that kind of work.
Yeah.
Like these are people that have a lot of repetitive use injuries. They have tons of like, you know, work related injuries and stuff that just sort of like, oh, excuse me, sorry. And stuff that just like adds up over time. So one of the things that Mike Rowe keeps saying, is it Rowe or Rowe?
I think it's Rowe.
Okay. The one of the things that Mike Rowe keeps saying is that we need to value vocational school and vocational programs. That, you know, a welder is an extremely valuable thing.
True.
A maintenance person is a very valuable thing too. And I think that if we can maybe broaden what success really means, and like stop pushing this idea of like ultra meaningful, ultra passionate work, that maybe we can have less discouraged people that are feeling less crappy about what they do and their job. Like, I mean, I can tell you, if you go to school and you learn how to become a machine operator to like machine like metal and stuff, you will get a job.
Yeah, it's pretty high demand, right? Yeah.
And it won't be that difficult at all. And the same for welders of any kind, arc or TIG, and many styles of welding. You know, good electricians. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that you will get a job, and you don't even have to pay that much to go to school for it. I forget what the HVAC, like for air conditioning and stuff, you can make a whole lot of money doing that, and you don't have to go to school for that long, and it's really valuable.
Yep.
Like I really don't like that somehow if you have a blue collar, it means you're not worth anything, because every single fucking guy, and well, every single person, it's mostly men, but every single person that I work with that has a blue collar is helping me pay my fucking bills
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
because they work for the same company. I'm helping them pay theirs too. We're all helping each other.
Yeah.
And it's unfair to act like there's somehow less or there's no contribution. Like most of our maintenance people that do work on the equipment in the plant, most of them are a good bit smarter than I am. And I'm happy to admit that. I mean, so, I think that maybe that's another thing that we can try to value the difficult parts of labor that seem like menial to other people. But like, like I fucking love paved roads.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And being on a road crew is a very difficult job. So I think that maybe that's a way that we can help contribute some meaning to people's lives, is by not making people feel like there's just this like small, like sort of narrow amount of jobs that they can have that will mean that they're doing something or that they're successful.
Yeah, true.
I mean, that's just another thought, because for me, like I really hate it when people look down on individuals that do like difficult work for a living or laborious or what you would call blue collar.
Yeah. No, I can completely understand, but at the same time, like trying to put myself in the shoes of a parent. If you've got a kid that was consistently like, very bright in school and was a good test taker and like, was able to think well, you want them to end up in a job that requires more thinking than just repetitive tasks. So it's not that they're less. I do completely agree that like we need to stop seeing jobs like that as less, but it's like I could see as a parent thinking that if your child ends up doing something like that, that maybe they had more potential with their mind rather than just their body. But
yeah, and I guess more it's like fulfill the potential, fulfill the aptitude that you have. But the thing is that people also need to have the opportunity to find that aptitude.
True.
Like I don't think it makes any sense for someone who can completely disassemble and reassemble a lawnmower motor at 13 years old to go get a job as an accountant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or like a human resources person, because they already have this aptitude and they should like double down and triple down on the thing that they're already good at. But I don't think that somebody that's like fantastically good at calculus should go do like I don't know, maintenance work or carpentry work, because they obviously have a huge aptitude for physics or another mathematical practice that requires talent in calculus or what have you. Theoretical math.
Are you saying that Good Will Hunting should not have stayed a janitor? That's crazy. That's crazy talk.
You know what, Ty? I want to come to pick you up. I want you to not be there.
How do you like them apples?
It's one of my. You like apples? So yeah, I think that it's generally allowing people to feel like they have value and they have esteem outside of narrow like scopes is a thing that we can all kind of do to help with people feeling that way. And I think that people should be adequately compensated for what they do. I think that if you are doing a job that doesn't require a whole lot of like university education, that you should be compensated for how much your back gets broken every day.
Exactly. Yeah.
And like that's something that's kind of hilarious to me. Like, I mean, why solid granite is so expensive, right?
Because of like how difficult it is and the lives that are lost mining it, right? Yeah.
It's mining it in large pieces, and then it's also how cumbersome and difficult it is to get it into a home in a whole solid piece.
Exactly. Yeah.
To actually install it like on a counter. So you're
the shipping
paying
costs and everything.
You're paying a shitload of money because another person like went through a whole lot of pain, suffering, and damage to their body just to get it. And the thing is the person that breaks their back getting that shit should be compensated for that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like we do that with, like for instance, like the NFL. We know that they're career is so incredibly short, so they end up making a ridiculous amount of money, right? Like, shouldn't that should basically extend to the necessary fields that also destroy people's bodies rather than just our sports entertainment, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's not just coal mining's still real to me, damn it. Actually, I had well, he's dead now, but I had an uncle that worked in the coal mines, and we don't know if the emphysema was from the smoking, the coal mines, or both, but probably both.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Jeez. Yeah, that's rough.
But yeah, I think that it's, as we've got, Lee over here in the chat saying, I agree 100% that that some people really are better at the menial tasks, and if they are, then that's what they should be doing. It's just fulfill whatever potential it is you have, whatever the best potential is. Like, man, I remember I worked for a repossession company, and one of the guys that worked there, you didn't know that?
I don't feel like we talked about this. No.
Oh, I was the lot guy. I never actually repossessed cars.
Okay.
But I worked a lot. So
were you a lot lizard?
Huh? Is that from a TV show?
Just say yes. Just say you were a lot lizard.
Yes. Yep. I was a lot lizard.
Thank you. I needed that. All right.
Continue. Is that tapping you getting a soundbite of that?
It will be. Yeah.
I don't know what that is. I should have.
A lot lizard is the derogatory term that is used for hookers at a truck stop.
Oh,
when they
God.
when all the trucks park there and there's a woman that goes from truck to truck and sees if anyone needs any services. That is a lot lizard.
I feel like my mother taught me better than to just say shit like that, but whatever. Sorry, Mom. But there was a guy there that he had a job, and what he needed to do is to put documents from banks and other parties in specific folders, and the folders were color coded.
Okay.
But he was colorblind.
That's not necessarily the right
Yeah, the folders were like reds and blues and things that they wouldn't be able to tell the difference between.
Exactly.
But somehow we put him in
silly.
this job. It's right there. It's just an obvious, like, putting people in the wrong job. And they knew the guy was fucking colorblind.
Yeah, that's not the best choice for him, right? I guess, like, could they just write on the front of the folder what it is, or does it have to just be by color?
They could just give the guy a job that he's better at.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, we've got is color blindness a protected class?
Reasonable accommodation. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
But it's like, why put him in a position where anybody has to struggle? Why not give him? Because there's a lot of other jobs he could have had, actually. There's many other things he could have done. We had a few other open positions there. And it was just funny to me. But there were a couple other instances of stuff like that. Like, it's someone with terrible soft skills being the person that worked the window.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I think we do that at my company, where we've got a woman that has been in the customer service department for, I mean, at this point, probably 15 years. And I think she is the most, like, she's not mean, but she is just very blunt and very abrasive. And it's like, that is not what you normally want from your customer service forward-facing position. You know what I mean? Like, your first point of contact with any customer to be this experience is usually not what you go for. But I mean, she does her job and she does it well. So
you need the best faker you can get to talk to the customers. The best damn faker in the world.
Exactly. And that's like, it's usually bad to be fake, but I think customer service is one of the situations where it's kind of, I don't want to say necessary, but it's like, it's a good thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely is. I mean, it's a huge plus.
Yeah. I love, I saw like a meme that was, someone was like kicking around the idea of like, what if we did the purge, but instead of it being just any crime, for one day, anyone in retail got to talk to customers how they really wanted to.
I'm way into that.
I think that would be awesome if there was just one day where they could just, like, every restaurant became like Dick's Last Resort, where the waiters and waitresses were just like, how'd you shut the fuck up? Like,
Do you remember when we pissed off that waiter at that place like on spring break in high school?
That's Dick's. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
That was
that was
Dick's, dude.
fun.
Yeah.
Well, you had to go really far at that place to actually piss someone off.
Yeah, we
Um,
succeeded. Yeah.
that was awesome.
The first time I ever went there, I was a young kid with my parents, and there was a group of like 3 or 4 college students that came in, and you could tell they had no idea what the place was supposed to be. Okay, so for anyone not listening, or for anyone that doesn't know, Dick's Last Resort is a restaurant in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, that the whole gimmick of the place is the wait staff treats you like shit. They talk to you how they would talk to, someone that they have absolutely no respect for. And it's just kind of fun. It's a fun, like, it's a very different restaurant experience than what you normally go to. But these guys walk in and they're looking around like they really don't understand what to expect from this place. There's all sorts of weird shit on the walls that they're kind of trying to like decipher, like what is the vibe I'm getting from this place. And as they're standing in the entryway, one of the waiters walks by and he's like, "Hey, just grab a seat at any of the tables on the second row." And they're like, "Oh, okay." And they walk over and they grab a seat at one of the tables on the first row. And as they're sitting down, he's like walking back from the kitchen with something else. He's like, "I said the second row, dipshits." And they all just like look at each other and look at him and just get up and walk right out. And it was so funny that like you could tell they were like, "What the fuck is this place?"
Where have we ended up?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure. I bet you someone recommended it to them, but didn't tell them what it was.
Probably.
Just
yeah.
as a terrible joke, or maybe not an awesome joke.
Yeah, I think that's a great joke, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm kind of thinking here.
Oh yeah, how do we get back on topic? We're now talking about dicks.
Got off of it.
We are now literally talking about dicks.
Being assholes. And fun fact, their slogan is, "When you say dicks, you've said a mouthful."
True. That is the slogan. I actually forgot all about that. That's their official
slogan. Yeah.
It's pretty genius. It's not bad.
It is. It's fucking clever as hell because it sums up the atmosphere of the restaurant too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that it's that there's not a lot that we can do except for people that we see that are maybe having some issues of this type, is to try to be to kind of like push and kind of guide them and encourage them as much as possible. But I think that the best thing we can do, I'm not saying we should give up on anybody that's having some problems transitioning into adulthood. And obviously if it's related to like mental illness or any sort of limitations mentally, well, then there's things that can be done, and those people can't necessarily be blamed for that. I mean, it's something that the difficulties that they were born with.
Yeah.
But for anybody that it may not be a result of mental illness, there's just sort of a lack of grit or whatever, that we can still encourage them. But I think the best thing we can do is try to help and shape the future children, the children that we know, the ones that are in our lives, to help them not end up in this place.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because like for the kids in my family, like if I find out that any of them have skills, or not skills, but like aptitude towards something, then I'm going to encourage them and like talk to their parents about it and be like, I think maybe this is the best thing for this child, instead of, the path that you took, because though that worked for you, it might not work for them.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that that's probably the best effort that we can put in, is to try to like make sure that the kids coming up now have the tools to succeed.
Okay. Yeah, I completely agree. And I'm trying to also think like what I need to do personally. So like what advice that I can take, because I guess I had myself convinced that it was like purely financial. That it's like, okay, as soon as I'm able to make enough money to really cover rent, then then I'm going to move back out again. But I mean, like you said earlier, it's kind of like you don't really agree. You basically you're under the impression that anyone can make it work. You just have to like make sacrifices. And it's I guess, yeah, go ahead.
Purely financial is more than purely financial.
True. Yeah. I guess it's like I didn't consider that I would be like willing to move in with a roommate. For me, it was like, I'm not moving back out until I can live on my own. But I guess like in your opinion, it would be better to just make that compromise and say, okay, well, I need to get out,
well,
even if it requires like a classified ad. Or
I mean, in that situation, it's kind of like it's saying, what can I compare this to? Okay. Of course, I mean, I'm a big advocate of actually running or riding in the rain, but if you say, I'm not, I'll run when it stops raining. It's gonna rain for the next 3 days. I'll go for a run whenever the sun comes out. But that's something that you're not in control of at all. So it makes sense to say, when this happens, then I will do this thing. But income, I mean, especially I think in your situation in particular, is something that you can have some effect over. So when you say like, when I can, pay, like make enough money to live on my own, then I will. But it's like, you won't do that unless you do that. Like there's an effort that's required. So it's like, and you're in control of that. It's not like a matter of course, because, I'll run when the sun comes out. That's something that if you're not willing to run in the rain, you have to wait for that. There's nothing else you can do.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can't control the weather.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be, is there something you're not telling me? Are you holding out? Can you control the weather? Have you been able to do that this whole time and you didn't tell me?
Yes, I am Storm.
From I'm Halle Berry.
That just sounded like Siri the sex operator.
That's my girlfriend, Siri. Yeah. You've met her. She's pretty cute.
Oh, yeah. Always tells you where to go. Gives great directions.
Dude, another great Joaquin Phoenix movie. Have you seen Her?
No, it's on my list of things to watch. It's been on there for a long time.
You just kind of reminded me of that with that.
But that's the thing that I was saying. So, I mean, there's plenty of people in plenty of situations that that really can't afford to live on their own, and there's nothing they can do about it, or there's extremely limited options.
Yeah.
But there's also plenty of situations where it's completely in someone's control, like acting like situations are just a matter of course in someone's life. I mean, that's I use the term a lot, but I mean, that's defeatism. Like, it's acting as if someone has no control over things that they actually do have control over, and acting as if the things that happen in their life are just a matter of course, like stuff just happens the way that it does. So it's like, I think a better way to phrase it would be, if I want to live on my own, then I need to have a higher income.
Yeah, exactly.
Meaning, like, I will do it when it happens.
Yeah.
Is more like, it will. But it's like, but if you're not doing anything to make it happen, then, like the president of my company a while ago, like, I jokingly said something about wanting to be like what the fuck did I say? It was something crazy, like a stand-up comedian or like a professional motorcycle racer. And I don't think he realized that I was kidding. And he was like, well, I mean, if you're not working toward it, then I was like, oh my God. I was like, I mean, thank you for believing in me so much. But I was just kidding. But yeah, it's sort of a thing where, he made the point that, like, I couldn't just say that if I wasn't doing anything about it.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
So it's like, I kind of feel the same way that, an effort has to be made to increase that, to be in the situation.
Well, in my mind too, like for my situation specifically, I had looked at it like I'm kind of playing a waiting game. I know that whenever I tried to apply for most jobs, what I was seeing was like consistently you needed 3 to 5 years experience in said field. And basically it's like, in my mind, it's like, okay, is it best to stay at my current position where I'm not making enough to move out until I have those 3 years experience, and then I can be applying for jobs that require that? And it's like you're technically working towards it by just simply letting the time pass until you're able to apply for, something that's not entry level that would then be able to cover expenses. But or is that just me trying to take like the most passive route, I guess, or like the path of least resistance?
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but I think that at the same time, it's actually, I mean, okay, in my experience, the best way to make more money is to change companies.
Mm-hmm.
Depending upon what your company's like, what the culture's like, and how valuable of an asset you are to them. A lot of the time, it's easier to just change companies. So sometimes you can actually get more money just by renegotiating. But it's like you got to get in the room, and it requires a lot of soft skills to kind of sell yourself. And the thing is that like when I get in a room for an interview, like I can sell myself, but none of it's bullshit.
Gotcha.
Like
Yeah.
I'm telling them exactly what they're gonna get, and I'm saying it accurately, and I'm saying it in a fashion that they're convinced. But the problem is also like jumping off of the piece of paper and like being an actual person in a room, and you can't do that until you actually get in a room.
True.
So I mean, it's like, yeah, that's something that that you'll get that experience, but you could still throw some feelers out there. And I mean, hell, you could maybe find a job doing something completely different that might actually be a little more fun, or a little more fulfilling. Even fun's not necessarily that important, but fulfilling even.
Yeah.
That pays you more money.
You mean that there's something more fulfilling than putting numbers into Microsoft Excel? I don't know about this.
For some people, I mean, it's hard to imagine.
It's pretty fulfilling. Have you played with Microsoft Excel before? It's pretty great.
I can make it work.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm the mechanic, not the race car driver.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Hell yeah. Well, where I feel like we've kind of done the best like closing statements, right? Like I mean, like we touched on it earlier with the way to pay this forward, right?
Yeah.
Like if I were to try to give myself a closing statement right now, like that's what it would be.
Yeah. I think that it's, well, if it's something that you're having problems with, then take responsibility and do what's necessary to increase your quality of life and to be the most independent person that you can be. And if you know someone that's going through it, do what you can to be supportive and help them, even maybe push them a little bit to try to get them to a place where they can get. And as a group of people, at the age that we are, we're starting to have kids, then like Ty said, just pay it forward. Let's just make sure that the next generation of kids, we do everything we can to make sure that they don't have to deal with this kind of shit, and we give them all the tools that they need to succeed. And if they don't, we know that it wasn't because we screwed up in raising them. Yeah. So I mean, I agree with the pay it forward thing.
Good.
For sure.
I definitely, I agree with everything right there. Well, with that being said, we have reached the end of episode 20 of the Metacast podcast. If you guys are watching this on YouTube and you've enjoyed the conversation, please hit that like button, subscribe to keep up to date with our with what we're doing here, and also comment below and let us know your opinions and experiences with Failure to Launch. Not just the amazing Matthew McConaughey movie, but the syndrome itself. If you guys are interested in further taking part in a conversation or even joining us as a guest on a future episode, join our Discord. The link is in the description down below. And don't forget to join us next week for another episode live Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv/TylerTV. Thank you guys for listening, and I hope you have a great week.